Hey there, my fellow designers and creatives. Hope you're all doing well. Welcome to another video in the super ultimate guide to design systems. In this video, we're going to go ahead and look at nav bars. Navigation bars are very common across pretty much every single app that's out there. And there are a couple of things that we need to take care of when we're designing navigation bars. So without any further ado, let's get started. Now, what you see over here is a bunch of screens that I've taken from the app. And we're going to be focusing on this part over here, this bar that you see. Now, before we go ahead and construct it and learn more about it, let's go ahead and see what the guidelines say about that. So I'm going to start off with the material design guidelines. And if you come over here, all the way to the bottom, we have something called as navigation. Now, what you see over here is the bottom app bar. We have this called as the navigation bar. And as you can see, material design says that the navigation bar is a bar that is at the bottom of the screen, which allows you to switch between the various tabs. And then you've got the navigation drawer, you've got the navigation rail, you've got search, you've got tabs, which now are on the top. These perform like segmented controls in iOS. And then here you can see we have something called as the top app bar, right? And if I click on that, let's get into this and see things a little bit more detail. You can see that there are 4 types of top app bars. You've got center aligned, you've got small, you've got medium, and you've got large, right? And the main difference here is that the alignment and of course, the size of the text over here, right? And this is a good starting point for us because we'll know the 4 types of bars that we have to create. Or can we just make one bar and make sure that it works across the entire app? Or should we just make 4 variants, right? That is a decision that we have to take. Now, there is no right answer. There is no wrong answer. It depends on how the app is structured and how the design of the app is, right? We might have 4 variants, or we might have just one component that has a bunch of component properties and we can get all the other options as well, right? So we'll figure all that out, but this is something that's really important to understand. Now, I'm going to come here to the human interface guidelines. Now, in the human interface guidelines, if I come down to navigation and search, all right, I'm going to click on that. Here you can see we have navigation bars. Now, in the material design guidelines, if I go back, here you can see that they say that the navigation bar is at the bottom. But in the human interface guidelines, navigations bar are on the top. And the navigation bar comes with this big fat title with an icon and then an icon on the right side and then probably some text element, right? So if I come down over here, you can see we have like a standard title and then we've got a large title, right? This is another way we can go ahead and set variants. So we have 2 options, right? And which one is right, which one is wrong? Is there another way? We'll see all of that later. But for now, this is what we have. Now here the question is, do we call navigation bar the one that's on the top or one that's on the bottom? Which one do we follow? Do we follow the human interface guidelines or do we follow the material design guidelines? Now, what I see in the industry being used is that when we see a bar on the top that is used for navigation, that is primarily called the navigation bar, which means it's very rare to see people calling the bottom bar as the navigation bar. Most likely people call this the bottom tab bar and anything on top is typically the navigation bar, right? But this is the opposite differences between material design and human interface guidelines. So in this case, I'm going to follow human interface guidelines where anything that's on the top is going to be considered as my navigation bar, right? Now let's see what Mobbin also says, right? If I come down here to view, you see you have the top bar and the navigation bar. And when you tap on that right now, for some reason, it just shows only 2 items, but it's basically, showing this over here. And it's actually supposed to show everything else because this is also a top navigation bar. For example, let's say over in other places like this is also a top navigation bar. But anyway, doesn't really matter. For some reason, Mobbin hasn't sort of categorized them correctly. Maybe they missed out. I don't really know, but it doesn't really matter. The navigation on top is going to be the top navigation bar. Now, one of the things that I really want to do is, I think I probably missed this out, is I'm going to make a copy of these 2 screens as well. I'm going to come back here to Figma and I've already made a few. I'm going to paste them over here. All right. Come to the next one. I'm going to copy this and paste this over here as well. All right, cool. So now we can look at this. Now let's try to understand how many types we have. Can we combine them into one? Do we have to have many, right? So a simple one is we have this one navigation bar with 1 icon on the left and 2 icons on the right. Very simple and straightforward. This is the main screen that we're going to be recreating. So this navigation bar is important to us. But you can also see that this navigation bar being used over here. All right. And we have this title in the middle. All right. And if we come back here to the material design guidelines for a second, we come down here to not actually navigation bar. We want to come back to down to the top app bar over here, right? So here basically we have center aligned, we have small, medium, and large, right? So maybe we can use this naming convention to a little extent. All right, coming back over here, we've got an icon here on the left. Now this icon looks very different. This is of course the icon button that we created in the previous video, but for some reason this has this is not even elevated. It has some stroke and all of that, and of course this seems like a brand new variant, and this for me is inconsistency. But anyway, here we have some tabs or segmented controls. Here is just one icon. Here it's an icon in the non-elevated state. So this icon button is in the non-elevated state. This one is in the elevated state. All right. Here we've got a normal chevron, and here we've got a title. Here we've got a text link, all right, which is another atom. Here we've got the one that we saw pretty much in material design. So if we come back over here, you can see this one, which is the small version of the title, right? Then we've got this one again. This has the icon and nothing else. Here you've got elevated states on the right side. Here you've got two icons, and then you've also got a title and a description, all right? And here you've got a drop down component, which is new. And as you can see, there's some sort of weird space, too much space on the left side. And then we've got three icons, which is quite interesting. And here we have nothing, but we still have a title, right? And a lot of the top level screens, for example, when you come to wish lists and trips and inbox, you most likely will not have a navigation bar, but that will still exist. It's just that no elements will be there, right? So these are the various ways we can create the navigation bar. So it can be quite confusing. The best way is to first make an inventory like this. And then we're going to start off by creating one by one. And then let's go and see and adapt. So let's get started. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in all the icon buttons. So I'm going to press Shift I on my keyboard. I'm going to bring in the icon button. All right. I'm going to bring that over here. I'm going to quickly change the elements. I'm going to change this to a chevron left. Whoops. I'm going to come over here. We're going to call this a share icon. So I'm going to come over here and say share. And then we're going to come over here and this is going to be a heart. All right, so we got ourselves the three icons. Now, we can go ahead and put all of this into an auto layout. I'm going to set the fill to white for now so that we can just quickly see things. Now, they are using a padding of 16 pixels on the left and right. All right, so we know it's 16 pixels on the left and right. So I'm going to add that. Of course, we are not using any of our spacing tokens as well. We're going to do all of that later, but for now, we're just going to recreate the navigation bar. And in the next video, we're going to learn about design tokens. Okay. Now we know that these two icons need to be together. So I'm going to go ahead and select both of this, press Shift A to put them into a container. And I'm going to drop this to like 16 pixels. We can go and quickly check what is the value between them. Looks like it is 16. So that's good. 16 pixels. Right? And we can set this to space between for now, so that as I increase this, this also increases, right? So I'm going to come over here and just put them over here so that we sort of get to a one-to-one match, right? And this is looking perfect. Now, the next question is we need some top and bottom padding, right? Because every component needs to have top and bottom padding. It cannot always be like this. I'm going to come over here and just try to put this on top and see, all right? Now, here is something that's very important to understand. Now, this screenshot that I've taken is from my iPhone 13. And the width of the iPhone 13 is 390 pixels. Now, the iPhone 13 has the status bar. Now, we designers don't have to worry about this because this comes with the actual phone, right? But then what is the height of the status bar, right? And if I bring, let's say this one, or maybe I'm going to bring this one, right? Which is from Mobbin, all right? And Mobbin has taken all the screenshots on an iPhone 10, which is 375. And if I come here and just try to replicate this one, right? Let's quickly try to replicate this. And I'm going to delete this icon. So we just have one of this. All right. And I set this to 375. And I'm going to move this up until we can sort of get a match here. And it's perfectly sitting. Here you can see the distance is 52 on the top. But here you can see the distance is 55. So what's actually happening, right? And even if you see over here that the alignment of these icons are different than the iPhone 10. So let's look at this in a little bit more detail. Now there's a website called as screensizes.app that has a lot of information. Now what I will do is I'm going to go to the iPhone 13 because that's the phone that I have. And if I come down, you can see that there is a status bar with a height of 47 pixels. The height of the status bar is 47 pixels. But if I come down to the iPhone 10, the iPhone 10 has a status bar of 44 pixels. So that's a 3 pixel difference. Now this is not something designers have control over. This is created by Apple and it is defined in the iPhone, right? Designers or nobody has any power over this. So we have to follow those rules. So what that means is in Figma, if I come over here and if I create a frame for the status bar, 44 pixels, right? What that means is now there is a distance of 8 pixels as you see over here, right? You can see that there's a distance of 8 pixels. But the navigation bar is in the correct place. But the top padding is 8. Now, which also means that the bottom padding also will technically be 8. So I'm going to add the top and bottom padding of 8 pixels and I'm going to move this up. And if I reduce the opacity, you can see that they're aligning exactly how it is supposed to, right? It's an exact one-to-one match. And that's exactly what we want. So I'm going to do the same thing over here, right? I'm going to add 8 on the top and bottom. Now for the iPhone 13, we know that this is actually supposed to be 47, okay? So now that it's 47, I'm going to move this up all the way to the top to connect those. And now if I reduce the opacity, you can see it's an exact one-to-one match. It's a perfect match, which means the height of the navigation bar is 48 pixels. Now the guidelines might give you different values. The guidelines say 56 pixels, but that's okay, right? As long as you are following something consistent and something that works for you, you are pretty much good to go, right? So 48 is the height of the navigation bar. And that pretty much is it, right? This is our navigation bar, right? We've constructed it. But now we need to make sure that this navigation bar works well for all use cases. And what are the use cases? It works for all of this. Now, even though we're only designing this one screen, as you see over here, right? I am going to create all the other variants as well and set up component properties so that you can understand how to create them for your app, right? Because if I just follow this one screen, we're pretty much done with the navigation bar. There is nothing else left to do, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and delete all of these elements that we don't need. I'm going to just focus on this one for now. I'm going to go ahead, make this into a component. I'm going to go call this the navigation bar. Now I'm going to set the size of this to 375 because we want to make sure that all our components are at 375, which is the smallest screen size. If you are designing for Android phones as well and you're using 360 pixels as the size for all your frames in the company that you work at, you can go ahead and make sure all your components have a width of 360. In this case, I'm going to keep it 375 because I usually design for the iPhone 8 or the iPhone 10, and that easily gets adapted to Android. But I'm not going to worry about Android. I'm just going to focus on iOS and make sure that all my components have a width of 375, right? Now, a couple of other things that I will do over here is I'm going to come up with a nice naming convention. So now the icon button, we already have that. Now, every time we create a wrapper, I'm going to go ahead and call it a wrapper, right? It's just to keep things neatly organized, right? We don't want unnecessary frame layers and frame names. Keep it very simple and very nice. So we have a navigation bar, we have an icon button, we have a wrapper, and then we have 2 icon buttons, right? And now this is working perfectly. Amazing. So now I'm going to cut this out, bring it over here, all right? And see if this works in all use cases, right? So this use case is totally fine. What about this use case, right? Now, of course, this icon needs to be in the non-elevated state. So I'm double clicking to just select the icon and I can turn this off into a non-elevated state, right? Now what I will also do is I'm going to quickly go ahead, create this icon. So I'm going to press P on my keyboard and just quickly create this because we're going to need to use this multiple times. I'm going to set this to 1.5 because 1.5 was the number that we were using. And there we go. And then I'm going to right click. I'm going to go ahead and frame selection. Actually, we're going to do outline stroke first. And then I'm going to add rounding. In fact, that's going to create this problem. So I'm going to just select the top, select the bottom, and then give that like a super big number. And we're going to set this to 12 by 12. I can go ahead and press Option Command G to create that into a frame. I'm going to put that into a 16 by 16 frame. All right. Make sure that we set this to scale. We set this to scale. I can also go ahead and right click and choose outline stroke. So we get rid of that corner radius. All right. We have this frame, and then I'm going to press K on my keyboard. I'm going to set this to 24. Cut that. I'm going to come down here to my icons, and I'm just going to create a new one. I'm going to paste that icon inside. I'm going to create this into a component. I'm going to call this shape. We're going to call this cross, right? And we should be good to go, right? That was a really quick icon that I made. Now let's come back here to the final design. And over here, I'm going to go ahead and change this to cross. Perfect. Now here, we don't need these icons, which means that we can hide all of this. So what I will do is I'm going to come over here and we're going to start giving component properties. So I'm going to select this. I'm going to come here to the layers and turn on the visibility. And what I'm going to go call this is end icons, or I'm going to call it icons right. There are so many things that we can do with the naming convention. For now, I'm going to call it icons right. I'm going to say create property, and which means now I can get rid of this if I don't need it. Now, here is the problem. When we do that, you can see that this icon moves to the center. The reason is because we set to space between. So how do we fix it? Which means that we can no longer use space between. And I'm going to move the navigation bar over here, the main component, so that we can see the changes happen live. So what I will do, first, I'm going to press X here and make it to left align. I'm going to select this icon button. I'm going to create a brand new auto layout frame by pressing Shift A. Okay. And I'm going to go call this wrapper. And here I'm going to set this to be fill container. Now, also we can see that this padding is 128. I'm going to set that to 16. So basically what we have is this one wrapper, which is set to fill container. And here, this one is hug contents, and this basically is pushing it. And we have this gap of 16 pixels as we have everywhere, right? So now this is going to be over here. And if I turn on the icons, we can see it. Now, we also have this text. Now, of course, we haven't looked at text styles or anything like that. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and create this and add it to the navigation bar. So I'm going to press T on my keyboard. I'm going to say login or sign up. I'm going to make this black in color. All right. In fact, they're using a color called with this hex code. So I'm going to use this. I'm going to drop the font size, and I'm going to come and put that over here. All right. Do we need like a bigger one? Of course, we're going to look at all of this later. There's a little bit of inconsistency in the text styles as well. So log in or sign up. This is fine. I'm going to be using medium. For now, they've used bold, but I'm going to use medium for now. And I'm going to come over here and put that inside this. Okay. So now this is what we have. So we have the wrapper. We have this. I'm going to go call this label. I'm going to change the text here also to be label. And then we have this. Now, if I come here and set this to space between, it messes things up even more. So what we're going to do now is, especially for this, I'm going to come over here and set that to absolute position. And I'm going to set that into the center. Now, what that basically means is if I come over here and increase this, that text layer is always going to be in the center, irrespective of what we have on the left and the right. And this makes things so much easier. So now we need to add a component property for this as well, because we don't want a label over here. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to add a layer property, and I'm going to say title, and I'm going to say true. And here we're going to turn off the title. And one of the things that you want to do is you want to make sure that you organize them in the right order. So obviously the title comes first, and then you have icons on the right side. So you want to keep title first, right? Just left to right order. All right. And this is fine. So this we created with this. Moving on to the next one. Now over here, if I were to bring back this one, all right. Now we don't want the icons on the right. Now, of course, we don't want to create another variant. We already have one which is elevated, right? And another one which is non-elevated. right? So I'm actually going to go with the non-elevated and remove this inconsistency that we have. I don't really like this, right? We either use the elevated version, which also might look pretty nice, honestly, because given that everything is in elevation, or we don't really do anything. And here again, they have a different icon itself. Why do we have this, right? Why not we have our regular chevron icon, right? They've used an arrow icon. Now, here we have tabs. These two tabs that we see over here are actually being used only in this place. They're not being used anywhere else in the app. Now, we do have bottom tabs like this, right? But this bottom tabs is a totally different component altogether, all right? And so if you look at anywhere else in the app, right, these tabs that you see over here are being used only on this screen. And this is being used only in the navigation bar. So what does that mean? That means that this is a local atom. So now I'm not actually going to go ahead and create this because this is not a part of the screen that we're going to be making. But in order to show you how this would work in the navigation bar, I'm going to quickly make like a very basic wireframe version, right? So I'm going to press T on my keyboard. I'm going to type in stays, all right? Apply this color, all right? And I'm going to call this experiences, okay? And I'm going to apply this color over here. And I'm going to go ahead and set this to auto layout. And as you can see on the left and right, both of them are equally spaced, right? So this becomes our tab component, all right? Or maybe you can call this segmented controls, all right? Of course, this has to be, maybe we can add a fill as well. I'm going to go ahead and make this into a component. Now I'm not adding the divider because this is just for representation purposes. And now what we want to do is we want to replace this label with this segmented control, which means now we will have to use an instance swap property. Now, of course, you can go ahead and make a brand new variant and put that, right? But we want to limit the number of variants. Try to make sure that everything can be done within one single variant and not have too many variants, right? We're going to create a new variant only when we are not able to achieve the result with one variant, right? So I'm going to Control Z that and use an instance swap property over here. So what does that mean? Now for this, first what I have to do is I have to come over here and take this text element, right? I'm going to have to put that in an auto layout. This text element that you see over here, if I set that to fill, all right? This, I'm going to call this a center title, okay? I'm going to remove all the auto layout values, the spacing values, and just make it a normal auto layout, all right? And I'm going to make this a local atom. So both of these are going to be local for this component. And then I'm going to make a duplicate of this, put that over here, or in fact, I'm just going to paste it over here. And this, we're going to go ahead and set that to absolute position. And I'm going to delete this. Okay, I'm going to select this, set that to be in the exact center. So now when I go ahead and scale this, you can see it works really well. Okay. And of course, we had added that layer property. So I'm going to just apply the title so we can get rid of that. And I'm also going to add an instance swap property, right? And here I'm going to call it center content, all right? And we have two options. We can add the segmented control or the center title and say create property. So now I can turn on the title. And when I turn on the title, I can change it from center title to segmented control. And we're doing all of that with just this one component. I can even turn on the right icons, but we won't ever have a case like this. So I'm going to turn this off. And of course here the padding as well is 25, which is a bit way too much. It should be 16 as we're using 16 everywhere. Again, that's an inconsistency, but let's not worry about that, right? So that's how you want to go ahead and create the segmented controls and the center title and put that in over here, right? And that means that everything else is also looking perfectly fine, all right? Now, let's move on to the next one. So if I duplicate this, here we can get rid of the title. And what I will also do here is this center component, I'm going to drag that above the title, okay? And I'm going to press Control Command Spacebar, all right? And I'm going to click on this icon. And what that basically does, it shows that it's a child of the title. So which basically means that if I turn off the title, you can see that the instance swap goes away. So if I turn on the title, you can see that this is connected to the title and it's very easy for me to understand what I want to pick, right? So that's that. Okay, now here I'm going to come over here, select this, make that into non-elevated, add a cross. That's perfect. Here again, I'm actually going to bring this one because this is exactly the same component, but all of the icons. So I'm going to double click, hold down shift and remove the status. So we have this, perfect. Here we have this version where we can remove off this. Now here, as you can see, we have this text as well. Now this text is also supposed to be a part of the navigation bar, right? Now I'm going to go ahead and reduce the opacity of this. We're going to come back to this in a second. What I actually want to do is I want to finish off the rest. Okay. Here we have clear dates. This is a text link atom. Now this is going to be a global atom because we're going to use this in multiple places across the app. For example, even if you see, let's say over here, maybe pick a big one, right? We can see that we're using the same component, right? So that's going to be a global atom. We're going to get to that when we make that. But for now, I'm just going to quickly make it in a haphazard manner. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to search for clear dates. Select this. I'm going to add a underline and there we go. I'm also going to put this into an auto layout. All right. So let me add fill 000 and make this an atom. And we can go ahead and call this text link. We're going to do all the naming conventions later, but I'm going to show you how we're just making it work, right? So now it's either the icons on the right or it's the text link on the right, which means we will now have to create an instance swap for the icons as well. So I'm going to select this wrapper. I'm going to come over here to layers. Now in the layers, I really can't apply any properties because this is just a single wrapper. It's not a component, right? It's just a frame. So what I will then do is I'm going to start off by removing this, creating this into a component. Okay. I'm going to call this icon group. Okay. And all of these are going to be atoms. Now text link is going to be a global atom, but the rest of these are going to be local atoms because it's going to be used only in the navigation bar. Now, maybe in fact, we can make the icon group also a global atom because we can use the icon group in other places as well. For example, we can use the icon group over here in the player section. We can use the icon group in the player, right? But for now, let's consider all of these to be local atoms except the text link. All right. So I'm going to make a duplicate of that. I'm going to put that over here. Maybe just paste it correctly. And then I'm going to add a instance swap. So now come over here and I'm going to add that line. All right. Click that over here. And I'm going to say write content. All right. Now we can look at the master component and make sure that all the things are right. So here we have, actually I'm going to call this write content. All right. And here I'm going to say content type. And here also I'm going to say probably content type and add that thing over here. Right. So we're just going to have a very systematic naming convention. So now I'm going to come over here and in the content type, if I were to go to the properties, so let me try that again. I'm going to come here to the properties. And I'm going to choose two options. I can either select the text link or the icon group. All right. And looks like we have some errors. So I'm going to clear that up. So what I will do is I'm going to select this center title. And oh, the reason we're getting the error is because it's obviously the same name. So what I will do is I'm going to come here and say center content. And here I'm going to say write content type. And here we're going to say center content type. All right, there we go. This should be fine. So now we don't really have any errors. Okay, perfect. So now I can come over here, make an instance of that. I'm going to come over here, put them together. And here in the right content, I can actually, first of all, I'm going to turn off the title. And on the right content, I'm going to choose text link and it's going to say clear dates. Now, of course, we don't want to call it clear dates. I'm going to say label. All right. And then here we can come here and set that to clear dates, right? Amazing. Perfect. Now here again, this one is exactly the same as, the one that we have over here, which is this one. So I'm going to copy this, paste the same thing over here, right? This is fine. We're going to make a duplicate of this again. Now here, we want to use the elevated button. So I'm going to first of all turn on the right content. This one is going to be an elevated state. And here we just need one icon. So how do we do this? Now we know that we have a use case where we have 3 icons. So what I'm going to do now again is I'm going to select this icon group. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and create 2 instances. Okay. I'm going to add another one like so. And I'm going to press Shift A to sort of group them together and just space them out a little bit so we can see what's going on. So the first one, I'm going to remove one that we have. Second one is going to be 2 and third one is going to be 3. And in fact, what I will also do is I'm going to select all of the buttons. Okay. In fact, select all of the buttons. I'm going to right click and choose not detach instance. We want to go ahead and say reset all changes. We're going to reset it to the normal state. Here, I'm going to call this amount or number of icons. All right. Here I'm going to say 1. Here I'm going to say 2. Here I'm going to say 3. Right. Now that goes ahead and replaces everything over here, as you can see. So we're going to fix all of that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come over here and double click to get the number of icons. Now, if we want, we can also come over here, click on the plus, choose nested instances, and we can choose what we want to show. Now I'm going to show icon group and center title. I don't want to show the icon button, right? I'm going to close that. So what that means is now I can choose the number of icons. So here I'm going to say 2 icons. Okay. Here, this is fine. This is also fine. This is also fine. Here, again, select 2 icons, not 3. All right. And of course, we can select individually both of these icons and set that to a non-elevated state. That's looking pretty good. We're going to come to this in a moment. We're going to come to this also in a moment. Here, this is fine. Here, this is fine. Here we have 1 icon. All right. And here we pretty much have nothing. Now I'm going to show you how to deal with that, right? So I'm going to hide this as well. Now for this, we have this. So here we need 3 icons. Now we also need another drop down element, which is going to replace the left one, right? So that again, now I'm not going to design this. I'll document it and show you towards the end of the video. But this, as you can see over here, this drop down is also going to be a local atom. And then we're going to use an instance swap to replace this. So now on the instance swap, I can either choose to keep it an icon button, or I can choose to have a drop down of sorts. All right. This again, I'm going to show you that later. Now we have a couple of screens over here that we want to see, right? I'm going to bring all of these down so that we can look at all of them together. All right. This one, and this one. All right. So here we have trips and here we have cancellation policy. Pretty much both of these are the exact same screens. The only difference is that this has a navigation bar and this does not, because this is one level inside and this is right on the surface, right? This is on level 0. This is in level 1. So what I will do, I'm going to start off by pressing Q on my keyboard. I'm going to type this down. Right now, I don't know if this is the right font size and whatever it is, but for now, this is just for illustrative purposes. All right. I'm going to go ahead and bump up this to like 32, I think. Yeah, 32 is fine. I'm going to copy this and come over here and paste it. Now, as you can see, this is a different font size and has a different font weight altogether. That is a very, very big inconsistency that I've seen throughout the entire app. Now we are going to fix that later, okay? But for now, we're just focusing on the nav bar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get one of the nav bars. I'm just going to copy that, come over here and paste it, all right? We know that this needs to be 44 pixels from the top because this is the iPhone 10 screen, so 375, all right? And of course, let's just assume that there is nothing over here, right? So maybe what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a rectangle and I'm going to go ahead and call this set the height to 48, put this over here, and 44 pixels from the top, right? Let's assume this is the navigation bar. Now we also have this text, which for some reason is 7 pixels below, right? And of course, I don't like numbers that are not multiples of 4. So I'm just going to bring that down a pixel so that we get 8. So just to confirm, you can see that 44 on the top for the status bar. This is 48 and then 8 pixels down, right? So what that basically means that now this is going to go into an auto layout, all right? Maybe I can add a little bit of a color to see what's happening, all right? And I'm going to set the top and bottom of this to 8, okay? I'm going to set 24 this time on the left and right side, as you can see over here, 24. I'm going to move this over here, and I'm going to increase this like so, and obviously we want to do left align. Now, here's the interesting thing. There are multiple ways to approach this. Now, if you see here in the material design guidelines, they've actually combined the title component, right? This title, they've combined it with the whole navigation bar. They've done the same thing over here as well. But what I want to do is I don't want to follow this approach. What I want to do is I want to treat these title components as a separate component altogether, right? So when a designer is recreating the screen, they're going to bring in the navigation bar, and it's going to be an empty navigation bar. And then they're going to bring in this component, which is a title, and that title is going to have multiple variants. So if this is H1, this is going to be H2, and in some screens like this, we have a H3 as well, right? So we have 3 different titles, right? So this is going to be a separate component altogether. And then we're going to bring in the nav bar component, which we have just been making for the past 30 minutes, and then bring in this and combine all of them and construct the screen. That's how we're going to do it. Perfect. So what that means over here is that this title component, we're going to bring that over here. And we're also going to bring in the navigation bar that we've just been making. I'm going to make a copy, paste that over here. And we're going to remove the right content. And here we're going to go ahead and make this non-elevated, right? This is how we're going to construct it. This is going to be called cancellation policy. Right? This is how we're going to construct it. Now, what are the font sizes? Is it right or wrong? Because as you can see over here, it's completely different. So we're going to fix all of that later. That's a different problem. But for now, this is how we're going to construct it. The same thing over here. We're also going to have these spills, right? We're also going to have this as a separate component, right? And we already covered the drop down. So I'm going to just hide the drop down for now. Now we have this option as well. Here we have the title on the left side. And we also have this version. If I am not wrong, we also have this version, all right, where we have a title and some sort of a description over here and 2 icons, right? So this is pretty much the exact same thing. It's just that this has a title and this has a description and this does not. But if you look at them, they both are the exact same variant. Now, if I bring here the navigation bar, all right, now let's bring in the right content. I'm going to change that back to the icon group. We're going to choose 2 icons. And I'm going to make sure that both of these are non-elevated, right? Now we can also bring back the title. Now here again, things get a little complex. And you can also see another inconsistency. If I were to quickly just measure the gap over here, you can see it's around 14 pixels. If I do the same thing over here, you can see that the gap is a lot more, right? The gap here is around 23 pixels, right? So there are too many inconsistencies in the app. And this is just, again, one of the many examples, right? So how do we make this work? Now, since it's really hard to control alignment with component properties, in fact, we can't even control alignment with component properties, anything that we do is going to make things a little bit more complex. So in this case, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to create a new variant of the master component. So what that means is going to bring down the navigation bar. I'm just going to cut that. I'm going to bring that over here. Okay, this is the one that we have. I'm going to create a brand new variant. And basically what I'm trying to do is follow material design's approach, where we have 4 types. We have center aligned, we have small, medium, and large. So I'm going to call this center aligned, and I'm going to call this left aligned. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come over here, and here in the navigation bar, I'm going to choose title alignment. This is going to be center, and this one is going to be left aligned. Now here, I'm going to just quickly change now the title alignment to left. All right. And then we're going to make the changes to this one, and we're going to see that update over here. Now, the first thing that I will do is I'm going to select this. Of course, it's the center title. I'm going to make sure that it is no more absolute position. Okay. And then I'm going to select this. We already have the wrapper. I'm going to take this and put this inside the wrapper like so. All right. And I'm going to set the gap here to 0. All right. So now you can see it's very much aligning over here. Okay. And what I will also do is I will add a subtext. And now instead of call this center title, I'm just going to go ahead and call this to be title. All right. Because it's no more going to be in the center at all times. It can be in the left as well. And I'm going to add this as well. Now I'm going to bring in the master component that we have. Okay. I'm going to cut that. I'm going to bring in this master component and I'm going to add a description. All right. And here I'm going to say subtext. I'm going to drop the size of this down to 14, or I don't really know what the font size is. I think it's 12. So I'm going to drop that to 12. Change the color here as well. All right. And I'm going to bring this down, left align this and make sure that it doesn't cross 48. Right. We can sort of give it a check and I think this is fine. All right. This is looking pretty good. Okay. And now the subtext is going to have a property as well. So this is going to say subtext. I'm going to set it to false because 99% of the times it's going to be false. I'm going to say create property. All right. And now we have this title. And now all I have to do here is I can get back those nested components. So I'm going to click on the main component, click on plus, and I'm going to choose a nested instances. And yeah, the title is already on. So that's great. So now when I select this, this is fine. All right. I'm going to make a duplicate of this, bring this over here. And here in the title, I can turn on subtext, right? Now, the problem with that is that this increases the height to 53. So one option that we have is that we can come over here, okay, and make sure that we set a fixed height of 48. So that way, whether we have the subtext or not, the height of this will always be 48. Now, of course, we did set a top and bottom padding of 8, but that's no more going to be the case because now we have set a fixed height and the top and bottom padding is going to be 5.5 pixels and that's okay. And that's exactly what they have done. So if I were to create a frame, this is going to be 44 and then create another one, which is going to be 48, right? As you can see over here, 44 and 48, and it's perfectly matching. And that's good design. You don't want to have navigation bars with unnecessary variable height. Now, as you can see, we did a lot of things. Things are a little bit messy. So what I will do is I'm going to go ahead and document all of this and then show you the final spec sheet so that you can see how this is documented really well. So I've gone ahead and created a new page called as titles and navigation. In that, I've put the navigation bar. So what we have is our master component, which basically has two elements inside. All right, we've got the one with the text, which is center aligned, and the one that is left aligned. And then I've created a section called as local atoms, and I've put all the atoms inside that, right? So whatever is possible over here. So over here, for example, we have tabs. Now I've created a master atom, which is for the tab, but we also have a local atom for this local atom, right? Because basically I've created two states over here, which is basically an active state and an inactive state. And I've taken that and I've put that over here, right? So this is a local atom, but this local atom also has additional atoms inside, right? Then I've got the title, and here in the title, we've got our title component, but there is another version with subtext, right? So title with subtext and title just ordinary. Both of these are at the same level. It's just that this one is with the subtext variant and this one is without. And then we have others such as dropdown. I created a dropdown, and we have our icon group as well. Now, I've also created variants, right? So now I've not given names to any of them because it's quite hard, but here are different types that we can use. Now there can be multiple permutation combinations. These are just some of the ones that I have found based on looking at the screens we're just looking at. So this is one which is ordinary. Then we've got this one which is not elevated. Here we've got the tabs. Here we've got the drop down. Here we've got the label link. Here we've got the text link. Here we've got just an icon. Here we have two icons with subtext, and here we've got two icons with just a normal text. right? So this is how, we want to go ahead and document these, right? And of course, this is something that you want to sit down with the other designers and engineers and see, is there anything else that we want? Is there some more documentation that we probably need, right? If yes, you're more than welcome to add that. If not, this is fine, right? So with this, we should be able to cover pretty much most of the use cases that we have over here. It should cover pretty much every single thing that we see over here, and we should be good to go. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys really enjoyed it. If you did, let me know in the comment sections down below. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more amazing, awesome content. And I'll see you guys in my next video. So then take care and bye.